Hello everyone, welcome to Mastermind. In this video, let us understand about right to freedom. This will be important part in our prelims also and also in mains under the section of polity and governance, constitution, etc. This will be very important. And this also is a part of part 3 of the constitution. It is part of part 3 of the constitution, which is again related to fundamental rights, again high yield questions part of the textbook. So here when we are speaking about right to freedom, we have to remember it is talking about article 19. Article 19 speaks about right to freedom. So we'll completely understand what exactly is article 19. And because article 19 is a huge article and there are many these things the rights for us to remember under article 19, especially 6 of them, there is a shortcut which I have. You also can use that. So what I have, that shortcut is, it is called as SAF RP. SAF RP. Okay, so I had made this shortcut when RP Singh was the bowler for Indian team, and I was making sure that let him bowl that ball properly. That is साफ ball करना है करके, something like that. So SAF RP. So what is this? Let us decode all these things. First one is right to freedom of speech and expression. Speech and expression. First one is speech and expression. That is, you have right to freedom of speech and expression. Next one is A. Right to assemble peacefully. Right to assemble peacefully and without any arms. Next one, after assemble, there is association. You have to remember these keywords, okay? Speech and expression, assemble, associations. F stands for freely throughout. That is, to move freely throughout the territory of India. Next, R stands for reside. Last one is P stands for practice. So these are keywords to start with. So I hope the keywords are at least clear. That is speech and expression, assemble, association, freely, reside, practice. Now what are the articles saying? The article 19 itself is an article which guarantees, okay, which guarantees to all the citizens. Article 19 says that there are some rights which are guaranteed to all the citizens. And those are the articles which comes under article 19. So in that, the first one is article 19 subclause 1. It is related to right to freedom of speech and expression. Second one is right to assemble peacefully. Assemble doesn't mean that you go and assemble with arms and ammunitions. You have to assemble peacefully and without any arms. So for in other words, it is called as protest, peaceful protest. Then you have right to form your own associations, for example trade association or unions. Okay, you have right to form those also. So right to form associations or unions or cooperative societies. So that is under subclause 3 of article 19. Next one is freely throughout. That is, you have right to move freely throughout the territory of India. You can move anywhere throughout the India, throughout any territory. For example, if they are not allowing you to go into some territory, and for example there are passes which is needed, then it is to protect that particular area's tribes or that particular area's respect, or maybe it would not be safe for you to go and visit that particular area, etc. Such areas we have seen in Andaman and Nicobar Islands and some areas in the northeast as well. But besides that, you will be able to move freely throughout the territory of India. Next one says that you can reside in any part of the India, reside and settle in any part of throughout the territory of India. Before article 370, before article when 370 article 370 was existing, at that point of a time you could not be able to buy a property and settle in Jammu and Kashmir. But after abrogation of article 370, after abrogation of article 370, which was upheld by Supreme Court recently also, now any person can go and they will be having that authority to buy the property there. That is, that restrictions has been removed now. Then the last one is saying that you have right to practice any profession or carry on any occupation or trade or business. So these are some of the rights, 6 rights which is promised by article 19, 5 and 6. Till here I hope it is clear. Now it is there till article 6, subclause 6. Originally, when we saw there, when article 19 came into place, there was another provision. There was another provision which was that totally there were 7 rights before. Now we have seen there are 6 rights, but now again I'm saying there are 7 rights. What I'm saying is the 6 rights which are there, they were there ever since beginning. But there was also another right. And what was the right? It was right to acquire. Right to acquire, hold and dispose of property. What is it? Right to acquire, hold and dispose of property. Okay, this right was there under article 19 only, but later on this was deleted by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. Till here I hope it is very clear that originally article 19 had 7 rights. So one right, which was right to acquire, hold and dispose of property, this is related to property, this was removed by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. There were a lot of things during that time. There was also zamindari systems abolition of zamindari, and then there were Schedule 9, the questions of Schedule 9, to and fro, basic structure, etc. was coming. So on that lines also, right to acquire, hold and dispose of property, which was a particular right, that was removed or deleted by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. After that we have this SAF RP. After that we have this SAF RP, which is speech and expression, assemble, associate freely, reside and practice. Okay, reside and practice. I hope till here it is clear. Now another important point, speech and expression or assemble. Whom will you assemble against? Can you assemble against an individual? Correct? Can you assemble against an individual? Associate against an individual? Usually it happens towards organizations, correct? It happens towards organizations. So on that lines, this article 19, all the 6 rights, these are protected against state actions. These are protected against state actions. Very crucial and very important point in article 19. These are rights, that is, they are saying that right to freedom of speech and expression, right to assemble, etc. All the rights are there, and they can be questioned if they are affected by states. Now the state comes into place. Now state in the sense the government comes into place and says that this is not your right to freedom of speech and expression. Only at that point of a time you can go to the court saying that the state is restricting my action and I have this right given to me by the Constitution under article 19, which says I have right to freedom of speech and expression. Now in case a private individual says that, then it is not applicable is what it is saying. So these 6 rights are protected against only state actions and not private individuals. Also, these rights are available only to the citizens and to shareholders of a company, but not foreigners. Because if you are forming an association, you are forming an association of, let's say, trade association. So it is part of a company. it is part of a company, and it is not for the foreigners. So people who are member of this have that right, but who is not a member of it, they are not having that particular right. So they won't be having any legal persons also, like companies or corporations, etc. On top of all these things, even against these rights, the state can have reasonable restrictions. On this, the state can have reasonable restrictions also, reasonable restrictions on the enjoyment of these six rights. And these has to be only on the grounds mentioned in the Article 19 itself, and not on any other grounds. That is, as Article 19 is giving you freedom, it will also give you on what grounds can these be restricted, and only on the grounds which is given under Article 19 the restrictions can take place, and not outside it. Now, if you are looking at freedom of speech and expression, it implies that every citizen has the right to express his views, opinions, beliefs, and conventions freely by word of mouth, writing, printing, pictures, and in any other manner. Okay, so the Supreme Court also had held that freedom of speech and expression includes right to propagate one views, okay, in different formats. You have freedom of press also under this. You have freedom of commercial advertisements also under this. You have freedom against getting your telephone tapped, against your telephone tapped. Then there is right to telecast, that is the government has no monopoly on electronic media, others also can telecast. Right to know about government, freedom of silence, etc., are all under this only, are all mentioned under this only. Now, as they are saying about speech and expression, what are the rights? Speech and expression, they are also saying what are the restrictions now. What are the restrictions? The state can impose reasonable restrictions on exercise of freedom of speech on the ground. What are the grounds? On these grounds only they can impose restrictions. On the grounds that sovereignty and integrity of India is affected. So if anybody's speech or expression, or due to press, okay, or due to expression on the printing or in the picture format, if those are questioning sovereignty and integrity of India, at that point of a time that cannot be considered as a right, because there is a restriction on that. Not just on that, even if it is against the security of India, even if it's against the security of the state, and even if it is against the security of the friendly relations, friendly relations with the foreign states, also in case of public order, decency or morality, contempt of court, defamation, etc. These are some of the restrictions which the article itself has kept. Next, there is freedom of assembly. When there is freedom of assembly, it says that you can assemble there. It means that you have that right to hold public meetings, demonstration, take out possessions. The freedom can be exercised. These freedoms can be exercised only on the public land. It can be exercised only on the public land. And even if they are assembling, the assemblage has to be peaceful, plus no arms has to be there. If there is arms, then the police will come into force. No arms has to be there, that is unarmed. This provision does not protect violent, disorderly assemblies. So in that case, it is against this right. Okay, in that case it is against it right. Now, what are the restrictions in case of this? In case of restrictions, you have section 144 of CRPC. 144 of CRPC, it says that a magistrate can restrain assembly, meeting or possession if there is a risk of obstruction, annoyance or danger of human life, etc. So at that point of time, let's say whenever there is a section 144 intact, at that point of a time people cannot assemble in more numbers, that more than 4 to 5 individuals cannot be standing in one particular place. So that says that this area has to be kept peaceful for some time. Maybe there is a religious possession, there is a religious possession is there, and there is a intelligence saying that from B religion there may be affect, or they will affect the possession of this a religion's possession on this particular road, correct? At that point of a time, the magistrate can take some steps in order to nullify all these incidences. So in other words, we can say that there are incidences wherein uh, the state will impose restrictions on the individuals in case of article 19. In case of association, you can form association, you have right to form political parties, companies, partnership firms, clubs, organizations, etc. But there are reasonable restrictions. Again, the reasonable restrictions come towards sovereignty and integrity of India, public order and morality, etc. Okay, the Supreme Court also held that the trade unions have no guaranteed right to effective bargaining and right to strike. So this was said by Supreme Court again. So everything has reasonable restriction, but whatever right you have, that at least you can use properly. Next is freedom of movement, which is move freely throughout India. India is one unit so far as citizens are concerned. Thus, the purpose is to promote national feeling. It is to promote national feeling, and it is not about patriotism. Okay, because most of the people are traveling around. Some people might want to settle in particular place, etc. Now, in this, there are two dimensions. One is internal freedom, and another one is external freedom. The freedom of movement itself has two dimensions. Internal, that is right to move inside the country. External, the right to move outside the country. The right to come back to the country, and also that is the right to come back to the country. Article 19 protects only the first dimension. 19 protects if you are moving inside country, whatever is there, that is undertaken by, the right is taken care by India. When you move outside, on that geography, our importance or our force will not be there. So whatever happens in India, it is in India's control. Whatever happens in, let's say, USA, it is under US control. So we can't be influencing there. Yes, the pressure will be there, the hopes will be there, the communication will be there, but it is not that full on impact on that particular citizens in order to benefit ours. Those things are not guaranteed in this. The second dimension which it says, which is external, that is right to move out of the country, that comes under article 21, which says right to life and personal liberty. That is up to that individual to move outside. India is not telling them to move outside, but it is their right and they can follow that. Next one is freedom of residence. Freedom of residence. Every citizen has the right to reside and settle in any part of the country. This right has two parts. First part, right to reside. Okay, first one is right to reside in any part of the country, which means you can stay in any particular place on a temporary basis. Second one, right to settle. Right to settle. Okay, this is right to settle in any part of the country, which means to set up a home. To set up a home, that means permanently. To set up a home means permanently, at any place permanently. The right is intended to remove internal barriers. With this, there is no internal barriers. That is, you have particular freedom only in this particular case. So, right to residence and right to movement are overlapping to some extent, correct? And both are complementary to each other, is what is about to be said. And when it comes to last one, the right to practice any profession, all citizens are given the right to practice any profession or to carry out any occupation, trade, or business. This right is very wide, as it covers all the means of earning one's livelihood. So in this case, there may be some restrictions. If uh, for example, if there is a recruitment in, let's say, Karnataka, at that point of a time, the the government will be needing people who at least know to read and understand Kannada. At that point of a time, the citizen from, let's say, Uttarakhand cannot be coming to Karnataka saying that here my right to practice any occupation is being affected with this. That doesn't happen, because the local conditions also has to be taken care. So some restrictions will be there and some preference will also be there. That is, in other words, wherever we have right to freedom, in that the right to freedom is there, the right to freedom is there, and but if these are affected or if these are interfered by state action, then the person can directly go to the court. And also in all of these there are reasonable restrictions is what we can say. So it is a big article, most of it again you have to revise. I've given you a bird eye view on the complete article. I hope you have understood parts of these, but most importantly you have to remember keywords into this. At the end of this e-paper, there are a few multiple choice questions for you to answer. You can attempt those. Thank you. I'll see you soon in the next one.